Hello, pursuers. Welcome to another episode of the Pursuit of Happiness podcast. I am your podcast host, Naz Kazimi. So last time that I was on here, I did mention that we would be doing Real Housewives of Atlanta. I forgot about Ladies of London. So today we will be covering the Real Housewives of Atlanta as well as Ladies of London. But let's start with Atlanta, okay? So we're on to episode 2, season 17. So now we get started off with Drew saying that her and her cousin Claudia, and the reason that I know about Claudia is because I've watched Atlanta since the beginning. I know Claudia was on the show, and I also know that she does a podcast with Carlos King, like she's a guest host where they review and recap Real Housewives of Atlanta as well as Married with Medicine and all those shows. So Drew's actually going to be a movie with Claudia, which is interesting. So she invites Angela Oakley. Now I love Angela, obsessed with Angela. She's so great. Anyway, so we see that, okay? That's great. It introduces the episode, I guess you could say. And then we see Shamia and Pinky go for a cold plunge. Cool. We're starting to see kind of the friendships amongst the group, right? And then we see a scene with Porsha. Okay, so Porsha walks into this, it looks like a brunch type, high tea, we call it here in Vancouver, type place. So she goes for a high tea, kind of tea, brunch-ish place. And then K. Michelle comes and joins her. And then shortly after, we have Kelli that comes and joins her. Okay, so here we are, the three of them. They're kind of at this brunch thing. The scene begins. They start chatting, and I know from the episode 1, they kind of had gotten into it, but then, Porsha you have to admit that, okay, when you see Atlanta, one of the main characters that you think of, besides Nina, who is a legend, icon, you think Porsha. Porsha's been on the show just as long. I remember her from the Cordell days. She's had seasons where she was not on, but she's always kind of been so fundamental to Atlanta, and especially the Real Housewives of Atlanta and that franchise. So it's so nice to see Porsha try to make an effort to be friends with the ladies, even though there's been beef. For example, when they say, oh, your best friend, Shamia, she's like, okay, ex-best friend. But, she says, I don't want any kind of issues. I just want us to be able to be cordial and have, fun around each other. And I think that type of honesty it's nice to see. Because if you think about it, she's correct. She's not lying. Her and Shamia were best friends, and things happened last season, and we watched part of it unfold in front of our eyes on screen. And due to that, moving forward, they're not as close. Their friendship needs a break, but she's not saying anything negative or bad yet. And I think that's commendable. I did notice that, in episode 1, she was like really adamant about kind of like being in a better place and not letting things bother her, but she did get really triggered by Kelli. So now she's in the scene. Now we're in episode 2. She's in the scene with K. Michelle and Kelli, and they're about to sit down, and they're chatting, and et cetera, et cetera. Porsha brings up a comment that Kelli had made on the after show in the previous season, that Porsha should leave married men alone or women's husbands alone. Somewhere along those lines. Please don't get me on the semantics. It meant the same thing. I'm just paraphrasing here. Porsha was upset about that. It hurt her feelings. I can see her feelings being hurt and her being triggered by that because, okay, I don't think Porsha stole anyone's husband, but Simon was married to, I believe it was Farron, was married to that girl, okay? Okay, I just looked it up, guys. The name was Fallon. So it was Fallon. So it was Fallon's ex-husband. And like production did Porsha shady where they show that time that Porsha was introduced to Simon through Fallon, because Fallon invited them all over. Anyways, Kelli makes this comment about Porsha needing to leave husbands alone. Porsha brings it up. She's like, that actually really hurt my feelings. And again, like I just finished saying, I could see why that could be a trigger, because I'm not saying that that's what she did, but, you know, the circumstances surrounding Simon and how she knew his wife, Fallon, prior, could kind of be a little bit more, she's a little bit more sensitive to hearing those types of words, you know? So then she brings up that she found out that Kelli was also with a married man. Okay? Here's where it starts to get shady. So apparently during BET weekend, Kelli met a guy on a flight somewhere. He ends up in bed with Kelli. And then he later changes and goes and meets up with his own wife. Now, how Porsha knows this is because that married man called someone that Porsha was with. So the world just happens to be too small. 6 degrees of separation is something that I always talk about. Is this messy of Porsha to bring up? Absolutely it is. It's so messy. I feel like I actually kind of feel bad for Kelli in this moment, because I feel like she was completely blindsided. Like, she really genuinely showed up at this brunch. And by the way, the place is called the Dirty Tea. So initially when I seen people in the background, I'm like, damn, like they're probably like, we got a lot more than we bargained for, but it's the Dirty Tea. So I'm assuming that maybe women like the Housewives that go there take it a little too far. Like, they're like, okay, this is a play on words. We're going to kind of play with this here. But anyways, so I feel bad for Kelli. Kelli totally, I feel like, just by her expression, the way that she's acting, she genuinely went in there hoping to repair her friendship and move forward with Porsha. I'm not too sure why Porsha would bring this up, except for the fact of that she's still upset about the comment that was made to her. So although she expressed to Kelli in episode 1, I want to move forward, I want to see where we went wrong, and let's move forward with our friendship, it seems like 5 steps backwards to bring up something to retaliate when you had mentioned that you want to move the friendship forward. Okay, that's one part of it. And for her to be upset, of course, it's understandable why Porsha would be upset. I just think that she lured Kelli in under false pretenses, saying that she wants to move forward with the friendship, and then ambushes her with this information that she has. Obviously, Kelli denies it, and Kelli says, bring the receipts, and Porsha had more than enough to prove on her end that this is the information that she was given. Now, is it true or not? I'm sure she feels like it's true, but she provided that evidence, the receipts. Kelli obviously still denies it. And then another part of me says that this is part of being on a TV show called The Real Housewives, especially of Atlanta. It's going to get messy. It's going to get shady. There's going to be tea thrown around. So as much as I know Kelli went in there with a pure heart, knowing that she really wanted to move forward with her friendship with Porsha, I think that now it's just like a kid that first starts going to school. Like, they're so innocent, and then eventually after a few years in school, they're a bit more jaded. They're a bit more, their guard is up. You know, when kids start going to school, they like certain things, and then all of a sudden they come home, they're like, I don't want that pink backpack anymore, because maybe they've been made fun of, or every year that they go to school, their style changes a little bit. They start talking different, because it's all about feeling included and wanting to be part of something, you know, especially when you have no choice. Now, Kelli obviously voluntarily is on the show. She's not, there's no gun to her head. You have to be on the show. It's making her money. She's just newly divorced. But now her guard's going to be a little bit up moving forward, because she genuinely went, like, you can just tell by the expression on her face, she genuinely went into that tea session with Porsha and K. Michelle, hoping to move forward. And this really has just taken the friendship and the relationship, honestly, more than 5 steps, probably 10 steps back. One thing I don't understand is K. Michelle so far. I know that she's a singer. I Googled her, and she's great and all that, but so far in the scenes that I've seen, so from episode one, when the ladies were chatting, she gets up and she goes and she sits with the guys to her newly wed husband and the men. And then now this episode, she's like, I don't know why I'm here. Does she know that she's on the Real Housewives show? Because I feel like she's kind of confused about all this tea and all this kind of shadiness that's on these shows. And it's like, I don't know if she realizes what show she's on because this is what it's all about. Or maybe, and I'm giving her a chance, obviously, like a few more episodes and even the full season to really get into it and understand what she's gotten herself into. Even Kelly, poor Kelly, this is now her second season. And the first two episodes, she really kind of was thinking that let bygones be bygones from the previous season, but obviously some people can't let things go. Part of it, yes, you guys are filming a reality TV show. It's to get ratings, and Porsha's a force multiplier. She's the person that you think of when you think Real Housewives of Atlanta. So she's gonna push the storyline along. That's what they do. But at the same time, she's also maybe a little bit deflecting from her own situation. She doesn't really have much at the moment, probably when this was filmed, going on. And she still holds a bit of resentment for the comments that Kelly made regarding her, I don't want to say marriage, but the way that she moves, especially in relationships. So I can see that side of Porsha. I just think that it was kind of misleading to bring Kelly here thinking that they're going to move forward when really she had kind of another agenda. But then also the scene plays out weird. Like they kind of they get into it and then they hug at the end. Like it's like I'm so confused. And then beyond that, they go and they talk shit about each other behind each other's backs. Now this is what Porsha doesn't do. Porsha doesn't really do that. Portia's pretty straightforward to the person's face, but Kelly does that. Kelly calls her Porsha. Okay, so Kelly doing stuff like that. Okay, Kelly, I get it. Porsha brought something that was totally left field to this brunch that you were having with her and K. Michelle. Came out of nowhere. But you also doing stuff like that is not helping the situation. So if the relationship went back 10 steps, it would have just taken 10 steps to go back forward to where you could have moved even further along. But now you saying that, especially not to her face, but behind her back, it's just taking it now. Now you're 20 steps back. So this is what I always say when I watch these shows. I'm like, someone needs to step up and be the bigger person. Who? We have yet to see. It seemed like Porsha was going there before she kind of threw in this dig. And she even admits, she's like, I don't know why I said that. I wish that she could have just been honest and been like, you know what, that statement hurt me so much that I just wanted to prove to you, to tell you that being a hypocrite doesn't really work well or did age well with what you said because you now did the same thing. Something like that would have made Porsha kind of stand out a little bit more. But going into this kind of brunch thinking that you guys are moving forward and then throwing this at her, completely blindsiding her, and then getting up again and hugging her and being like, well, I don't know why I brought that up, and almost pretending like you don't know. I don't think that's a good look either. That's just my opinion. I think honesty will go a long way. But yeah, so much for that friendship. We can just toss that one out. Another part that I found extremely funny, just to kind of finish off with the whole Porsha brunch incident with Kelly and K. Michelle, is that Kelly's like, well, we could have had this discussion in private. Portia's like, well, this is as private as it's going to get. Kelly's like, well, this isn't private. But no one breaking the fourth wall. So Kelly had said that on a show. She's like, well, I said that on the after show. It wasn't press. Okay. Porsha comes back with saying, well, I'm, saying it to you here. We're having a private conversation. We all know the elephant in the room is that, like, you're saying it and this is going to air. Should production choose to air it? That's kind of like the elephant in the room, But another part of it is there's, like, other people at other tables sitting and, they seem to be talking kind of loud, although the other people are sort of having their own conversations. I feel like when it comes to certain cultures, for example, like Black people, like, when there's other famous people in the room, they're not ones to act like fans. Whereas like if you watch things like Beverly Hills or just some of the other franchises in the background, you always see people trying to like sample. Okay, here's a perfect example. Vanderpump Rules. Perfect example of what I'm talking about. In the background, there's always like some older lady sitting there trying to record the entire conversation going on, even with the new the new Vanderpump Rules. But I noticed in Atlanta, even through watching Love and Hip Hop Atlanta, like it just they don't act like fans. They just mind their own business. And I can appreciate that because it kind of ruins it when they act like fans. It is kind of breaking the fourth wall, although it happens, of course. You see when they travel, it happens. People come up to them, they chat with them. But anyways, regardless, of course, it's not a private conversation. We all knew that. That's the elephant in the room. Porsha was definitely being petty there. She's like, I'm, being as private as you are when you made your comment. So it makes sense. But we all know what they meant. That this was definitely going to get picked up by production. They're going to edit it and skew it in a way, and then it's going to not be on the production room floor. It's going to end up on the show in one of the episodes, and there we go. So Porsha got her payback. Moving right along. I really love that we're getting to know more about Pinky this episode. So remember last episode I said that I was listening to some podcasts and there was kind of a rift between like they didn't show enough on episode 1 to grabbing the viewers, and then some people spoke and said that, well, no, like it was just enough to kind of get us hooked, and some people were like it wasn't enough at all, so people will just start falling off, like we should have seen more about Pinky and K Michelle. Well, okay, I love what we're seeing about Pinky now. I think just hearing Pinky like and how she was speaking at that summit is just so inspirational. That's kind of what I want to do in the future, is to be a motivational speaker and to kind of just talk about the experiences that I've been through. And if that can help even one or two people, two women, to just not give up, like I've done my job. Even with this podcast, like I look at it from a very mental health point of view. I mean, I don't want to say that reality TV is not real, because we all know that it is to a point, but it's also interesting to see the dynamics between people, as some of these dynamics aren't fabricated. And I think us as an audience, we're very smart at picking that out, because you can tell what's real and what's not. But beyond that, it's interesting to see human interaction, and I love to break that down. I'm always observing, and when I want to, sometimes I could walk past my own family and I don't notice them because I'm all just in my own head. But when I really want to, I can really observe people in their element, and just human nature and human interaction is so fascinating to me, how people react a certain way. It's interesting being part of the human species because we have that extra level of intellect that animals don't have, and that control, and sometimes when people want to like excuse behaviors, for example, in men, they're like, well, men are sexual beings, men are men. That's true. But beyond that, men can also control because they're human beings, right? They're not just animals in the end, or else they'd be part of another species, such as the animal kingdom species being, for example, they'd be lions or whales, or in that sense, yeah, then they can't control that, they're merely behaving based on instinct. But us being humans, there's that extra layer of emotional intelligence that it's just fascinating to me. So back to Pinky, I digress. Sorry there. It's just good. It's nice to see her in this type of light. Did you guys catch that Montel Jordan was their wedding officiant? I had to call my daughter, and I was like, oh my God, this is how we do it. Like, did he sing too? Because that'd be awesome if he had a few songs there. It is Atlanta, I guess. Everyone's connected. 6 degrees of separation, especially if you live there, right? So same thing with LA. Everyone knows each other. We watch Beverly Hills, and they're at lunches and everyone's saying hi to each other like they've known each other for years. So it's just the life that they live, the people that they know. One red flag that I did see was her husband saying that, you're a dominant woman and I humbled you. She spoke back, but not in a rude way. Obviously, she was just like, what? Like, what are you trying to say? I think she understood what he was trying to say in that moment, but like, that's like, is that really what you think? That you humbled her? I'm also a very dominant woman, and this is why I love Pinky, because I feel like I can relate to her and see what she's doing. Like, having someone like me look up to her, I want to just obviously be that influence for somebody else. But anyways, I'm digressing there. I think as someone that's a very strong woman, someone that is financially independent, or striving to be, someone who's really done everything on their own. I've raised my child on my own. I don't have a husband. Do I rely on my family more? Probably. Sometimes I even take that into consideration. I find that when people are close to their families, perhaps they don't feel the need to necessarily have a significant other. Although that is also sometimes incorrect because I've seen many, many people that are very close to their families and have still been married and et cetera, been able to find love and believe in love again, etc. But for me, for someone that's very strong, I don't want to say dominant, but strong, I just need someone. Okay, I don't want someone or need someone, but if I have a significant other, it's going to be somebody that allows me to just be myself and doesn't try to humble me. I don't like the way he said that. It just rubs me the wrong way. I don't need anybody humbling me. I need someone to be there to support me, and I need someone to, when I'm stepping out of line, to be able to speak to me in a language that I understand without being overbearing or trying to control me in that type of language, because that won't sit well with me. But somebody that truly loves me is going to understand who I am. Vice versa. Someone that I love, I'm going to understand who they are. And we move forward that way. But to say humble you is just like they're stepping into this dynamic where they control. And I don't like that. That really rubbed me the wrong way. And I know I'm getting held up here on the semantics of it all, but I just have to say, like, I don't know, something just about the way the words came out. And despite, I don't know, I can't even say that I understand what he was trying to say, you know? So anyways, I'm going to leave it at that. Moving right along, then we see a little bit more about K. Michelle. So again, nice that we got a little bit more introduction to Pinky, a little bit more introduction to K. Michelle. She mentioned at one part, she's like, God's funny because she always wanted a girl and then she ended up getting a boy. It's not like I always wanted a boy, but I thought that I was for sure having a boy when I was pregnant, because they say, I don't know, everyone has different things. They're like, when your pregnancy is easy, you're a boy, because girls take up so much hormones, et cetera, et cetera. Definitely thought it was a boy. And then God has a funny way, he gave me a girl. But I love her, wouldn't change anything for the world. But I definitely understood that when she was saying that. And it was nice to see a little bit more about K. Michelle's sort of life, like with her husband, how they were together for quite some time, and then he just wouldn't get married, I guess. He didn't pop the question, so she left, and she's like, okay, if you're unsure, I'm not gonna waste any more time. And then she starts dating. He comes back, he couldn't stand to see her with somebody else, and then they kind of, I don't want to call it a shotgun wedding, because shotgun is typically when someone's pregnant, but they quickly got married, you know, to kind of like seal the deal. And now she's having fertility issues. God really is funny. He does have ways of making people work for what they want, and you know, but I think that the prize is so much more sweeter in the end. So nice to see that about her. We see that Kelly's opening up her chicken and waffles place, Nana's. But what's so funny is that when Angela and Shamia came to her store to see her, production really did Porsha dirty, and I tried to record it and then submit it, but then like they took the video down because they're saying it was copyright. I thought it was so funny. Production did Porsha so dirty, showing the scene where she went like to Fallon's, and then you know they introduced Porsha to Simon, and then they punched. They did the kind of the fist pump, because back then I think it was COVID times and people weren't, you know, hugging and whatnot. Wow. Production did not really hold back on that. So I guess that was a win for Kelly. But she did express how she wasn't really too happy with Porsha doing that. And she started calling her Horsha. And then Shamia's like, well, did you say that to her face? She's like, no, I'm saying it now. This is where I think Kelly loses. Not only with the audience, but kind of credibility for herself, because it's like, or integrity for herself. It's like, if you can say these behind Porsha's back, definitely have the opportunity to say it to her face. Because although Porsha was petty and shady at the dirty tea and what she brought up, she still brought it to Kelly's face. Unless we haven't seen it and production just didn't put it out there for us to see, I don't think that she said it to anybody else. So that was quite interesting to see Kelly do that. And then fast forward as we see them come to the opening of it, Porsha doesn't show up. She sends flowers instead, and she says, we need to talk. Kelly again loses me here when she calls, or she didn't specifically call Porsha, it was Cynthia that did, but when she takes the phone and, like, no, I threw your flowers away and whatnot. Like, girl, it's your opening. Like, just be happy. Like, for a minute there, I thought, like, wow, she really hasn't brought up Porsha. Like, she's unbothered by Porsha's presence not being there, and I thought that was great. But then, when they throw the petty remarks, because Porsha was still being nice, although Porsha didn't show up. I think, like, Porsha's gestures sit well with me better than Kelly's, because Kelly's seems like they're always reactions to what Porsha's done rather than kind of like being her own. Like, this is where she's starting from. And I get it. Like, people will trigger you and you react. But I don't think that it needs that big of a reaction from her, where it's making her seem like she's the one with the bigger issue than Porsha, when Porsha is the one that instigates it. I don't know if that makes sense, but it makes sense in my head. Drew's movie premiere we saw. That was fun. I saw Claudia Jordan in the back there. Overall, a good episode. I love Angela with the dark hair. She's gorgeous. I love Angela. I'm excited to see sort of how things go on more. At the very end, it showed K. Michelle kind of being at the American Country Music Awards for Kissy Palmer, and that was nice. But then she started having a leak. I've heard that she had injections. Well, she's mentioned it. She said she had silicone injections. I didn't know that you leak from silicone injections, because from what I know, they're injected in the body and they don't come out. But I know many women that have had injections in their butts and they look great, and some that it looks really fake. But silicone injections are something else. I just don't know. I myself have had a BBL, nothing crazy, but I've had that surgery. So I just feel bad for her. But I love how honest she was being about it, and how she said, I'm not even going to say because of, it's just something that I did to my body because I wanted more curves and more this, and then it ended up biting me in the ass, literally. So excited to see her journey. And then I got up to wash the dishes really quick because I'm kind of running behind, but I heard that Porsha and her get into it. K. Michelle's upset with Porsha for something, so that's going to be interesting to see. It's nice to see now that we're getting more of K. Michelle, because at the beginning I'm like, wait a minute, episode 1, she didn't want to be involved in the drama. Episode 2, she was questioning why she's in the middle of this here at the brunch with Porsha and Kelly, if there's going to be beef. Does she not realize she's on the Real Housewives? But I think we're going to get more from K. Michelle than we thought we would. Or the people that know her that this is exactly who she is. But I'm excited to see kind of that side of her, the Real Housewives side of her. But that was Atlanta. Atlanta's getting so good. Atlanta's one of my favorite franchises. I'm so glad it's back. Let's quickly get into the Ladies of London, as it's one of the other shows that's on. So this last episode was episode 7, and it's really centered around Micah and her birthday. Her brother Braun is in town, so Micah's like she's a middle out of 3 siblings. She has an older brother, then it's her younger brother, and Braun's a personal trainer. This part hit with me because I also am in fitness, bodybuilder. I'm a bodybuilder, and I have fitness clients that I still train online. And myself, I'm kind of cutting right now, getting ready for summer. Fitness will always be my bread and butter. Fitness will always be something that I rely on. It's just something I love. I bodybuild. I love being in the gym. I love working on my body. There's some days that I just don't want to go, and that's mental. It's not necessarily physical. But I'm getting older. I'll be 42 this year, and it's just, plus with my ADHD and the type of person I am, I definitely feel energy in my body as a physical thing, not always a mental thing. And I always need to get rid of that energy, or it transforms into like anger or something into me, right? Or anxiousness. So I love getting to the gym earlier rather than later. But like right now we're in Mexico. So after I'm finished recording this, me and my daughter are going to go for a long walk with the dog. I wasn't able to get to the gym today. We have lots that we did as we're preparing for our next kind of bit of travel. So, we're just, and it's really hot during the day, but we're going to go and get our walk in, and it's getting close to the weekend. There's a pier where we live, and it's like a long boardwalk, and it's just gorgeous. It's gets busier towards the weekend, but we're going to go out there and we're going to enjoy. But yeah, back to the fitness. So it was nice to see, someone in fitness. And I do find now, being here in Mexico right now, I'm not saying people aren't fit. So many people go and they jog that pier, the boardwalk. So many people are in the gym that I go to. But definitely the US and Canada, people take the gym way more serious. It's just something that I've noticed as I've traveled around the world. Even when I was in Australia, I know there's a lot of bodybuilders that come out of Australia, but there's just something about the US. If it's an American that's in Australia, you can tell. If it's an American that's in the Middle East training, you can tell. But there's just something about North America, as in particular Canada and the US, and how involved we are with fitness. Just first of all, the drugs that we have access to in terms of steroids and peptides and um, the facilities and the type of equipment and the fact that men and women can work together. It's just, adds that extra layer of knowledge. It's just so different. That's where I'm really grateful from being from Canada and the US, no matter where I end up in the world as I grow older and with my career moving in different places. I love that my roots in terms of bodybuilding I have started here because I feel like I know everything. And one thing I love about gyms is you can go anywhere in the world and all gyms are pretty much the same. People might train differently, but shit, I'm in the gym in Mexico and all the instructions, because the equipment is got to be from the States, all written in English on the equipment, and I'm like, I love it. But anyways, he comes to town and he gives the ladies a bit of a workout session, and it's Missy that's there, Micah, Margot, and Martha. So after the workout, they kind of sit there, they chit chat, and they kind of go over Martha's event. And Margot said that she felt like she was all alone there, and that, what the difference between the issue that she has with Kimmy and the issue that she has with Mark Francis, that Kimmy's very forthcoming. Kimmy says exactly how she feels, but Mark Francis is more the type that will like take it behind people's backs. So to her face, he's very like passive aggressive, like, oh, like wearing something like that, you've got to have a little bit of cruelty in you, darling. And I love Mark Francis, but I'm just saying, like, I can see it too. It's a little bit more shade that he throws. Now, after that, when we get to, because the majority of it was when they're at the polo event for Micah's birthday party, so to speak, where she kind of invites all her friends. Missy takes Mark Francis aside to talk to him, and he's like, listen, like, she was really upset, etc. I think that's the only time I've seen Mark Francis be very serious and not like jokey. And he was like, don't worry about it, she's gonna be okay. Like, he wasn't like throwing digs, he wasn't throwing jokes he wasn't answering the questions with jokes or expressing how he feels with jokes. He literally was speaking normally and expressing himself, and I'm like, this is, I think, what we need to see. I mean, mind you, his other personality of him being a jokester and passive aggressive is funny. I'm not at the receiving end of it, but to observe it, it's funny. But I think that when it comes to Margot, that's what she wants from him, that type of communication. But of course, you know how it is with people that you want something from and they're resentful towards you, or they're not liking you in the moment. They're going to do anything but give you what you want. So he's kind of being petty as well and saying, well, she doesn't deserve that much from me. She'll be fine if I do or don't do that. So I'm not going to do that just because she wants it. And that's sort of where we see the rift-raff between them come around. I feel like they're both the same person, even with Kimmy, although Kimmy is a little bit more playful, I feel like Margot's a very serious person. Like, Margot can joke, but Margot can't take jokes. Same with Mark Francis. Mark Francis is a very serious person. Just look at when they had the new guy there. He can also dish out jokes, but if the joke's on him, he does not like that. And I think, like, when you have two of the same people, two things happen. You guys can either get along great or you hate each other. And sometimes when it's the latter, when you hate each other, eventually you come around and you guys become great friends. Or opposite. If you guys get along initially from the beginning and then eventually you grow apart, which I find that harder. Like, something has to happen for that to occur. But when you are friends first and then you fall apart because of your similar personalities, that's the worst, because then it's harder to come back. Because so much more resentment builds up in that, So anyways, the episode ends with Emma inviting them to Longleat. I don't know what Longleat is. I think it's a place. But it seems like the drama is going to escalate a little bit more. It is the first season of Ladies of London, The New Reign. So I don't know if they're going to have many more episodes coming out. I think this is leading into like the finale, but it's exciting to see. I love it. I do like all the cast. I've gotten to know them. I like them all. You have like the major players like the Micah, who's like with the great with the etiquette, and she's just such a good friend, you know. She's always asking the right questions. She's not burying people too deep when she's mentioning kind of other things that she's heard. Um, when she plays the game of telephone, which I don't call it playing, it's just sometimes she will repeat what someone has said. She doesn't make it more dramatic. In fact, she downplays it so that it doesn't really cause problems. I think that's great etiquette. That's similar to how I am. Um, then you have like more of the other players like Martha. I think Martha is neutral and everyone loves her and everyone wants her to be their friend. And that's nice to see. You have Kimmy, you have Mark Francis. These are like the major players in the game, you know? Um, you have Margot, and Margot is kind of like, I wouldn't say the villain, but I feel like people, it's a toss up between Mark Francis and Margot, and it depends how you look at it, you know? One can be a good villain, one can be a bad villain. I think Mark Francis is the good villain. Like he's the jokester, but he's still kind of like villain behavior. Whereas like Margot, people love to hate her, you know? Um, so she's like the bad villain. She's like the bad person, but she's the villain. You know, it's interesting to see the dynamic. Um, you have Emma. She's kind of like just hangs back a little bit. She shares her opinion, but she, you know, hangs back a little bit. Missy, same thing. Um, I think Missy was the messiest when she exposed Dara at that dinner. But you know that she'll get down and dirty if she feels like she needs to, so that's a good thing. Lottie is pregnant, so Lottie's just, you know, offering her to. She's like an Emma, you know, when she needs to, she'll say what she needs to say. She's not afraid of that, but these are not her problems to fight. So she's only as involved as she really can be with them, you know. Um, yeah, it's a great season. It's very entertaining. I'm loving Kimmy's fashion, getting to like her a lot more. But my favorite is I think Mark Francis and Micah. I like them. They're entertaining. They're good people. They're um I feel like Mark kind of expresses how he feels, and I can understand his style of communication. It might not be how I necessarily would want someone to communicate with me if I need to be communicated to. But then again, you learn that you really can't control, you know, other people. You can only control your own self. So I like him. I love the season. It's so fun. It's such a good show to watch. And like they say, it's always raining in London, but like so far what we've seen, it says sunny days. They're wearing these nice dresses. I do notice though. I think I've mentioned this in other episodes. They don't really wear like tights, like exercise clothes. They're always nicely dressed. It's a dress, it's this, it's that. Not that on the other franchises they don't, but like not even on a like even sometimes like with the exercising, you don't really see them in like standard like what we're used to, like the Lulus and stuff like that, you know? They even make fun of it. They're like in LA, everyone's in tights, everyone's in Lululemons, and I'm from Vancouver, and look, Lululemon originated out of Vancouver, okay? So I think I have the right. But even here in Mexico, I notice that too. Like I'm always in tights, and I don't notice a lot of people in tights. The only time I see people in tights is at the gym. Part of it could be just the bodies are different. I'm not comparing that to Mexico, just in general. All over the world, you have people with great bodies, but I find more so people with the confidence and the nicer bodies are the ones that wear tighter clothes, whether it's a tight dress, bodycon dresses, um, tights like gym clothes, you know, like yoga outfits. It's just comfortable. Um, and especially in Vancouver, like where I'm from, where it's like the rain and like I don't want to be decked out and then like in the rain with an umbrella. Like, no, it's not comfortable. If I'm going to be sitting all day in a class or going to the gym, obviously I'm going to be wearing comfortable clothes. And for me, like I also don't like pajamas, so I'll be wearing my Lululemons, you know? So yeah, it's just funny how they made fun of that because I'm like, yep, that's Vancouver. We're from the West Coast and we're the Pacific Oceaners and and hey, Lululemon came. They were making fun of the LA people for wearing Lululemon. Lululemon came from Vancouver. So yep, that's another city that you go to. You're gonna call not only call it a fit city, but people are constantly wearing their workout clothes. Because I've seen a lot of people from Germany, and I've just met a lot of tourists being like, "You guys are always in workout clothes and tights," and I'm like, to me, that's my entire wardrobe, you know. So it's just interesting that people cannot relate, but maybe that's why I'm a Vancouverite at heart. So, with that being said, that is our recap today. That was Atlanta and Ladies of London. I will probably put out two more episodes before next week. One's going to be, well, they're both going to be Dear Naz episodes where I just answer some pursuer questions. Um, with that being said, I just want to warn you guys again that next week I am going to be traveling and I will be on the road. So I'm not going to be able to podcast how I like. I might be able to, I can't guarantee to put out an episode where I'm just kind of updating you on what I'm doing. But that's if it allows. If I have Wi-Fi, I may be able to even upload. But at the end of that week, I will be catching up on all the shows. So that'll probably be April 27th week. I'll be back on. So during that week, episodes will come back out. I am gonna have clips ready for social media and whatnot, so that during the time that I'm unavailable, if I do stop somewhere and I get a quick Wi-Fi, I can just connect and put out clips. But just be warned, there will be no episodes for a week. I might schedule old episodes to come out, just so that, there's something and it's not just silence for a week. I might just kind of put out some of my older episodes at the very, very beginning when I first started podcasting, just so you guys kind of, for all the new pursuers, you can kind of get to know me a little bit better. With that being said, thank you so much for listening, you guys. If you're not already subscribed, please subscribe, like, follow, share the podcast. I'd really appreciate it. I am on socials. I have my own personal socials on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. I also have the podcast. We just started the podcast socials on Instagram and TikTok. I don't think I'm going to take it to X. X already has tons of bloggers and podcasters on there. But I do have my own personal account on X if anyone's interested in that as well. If you want to send me a DM, please find me on my socials. Everything's in the show notes. Please feel free to leave a voicemail on the podcast voicemail. Hopefully in the future we can get actually your questions on air. That'd be fun. With that being said, have a wonderful rest of the week. We'll have a couple more episodes coming out. They will be answering pursuer questions. I'm excited to see the new episodes as they roll out too. It looks like we're having a fun-filled new bunch of series that have come out, and I'm so excited to watch the Summer House reunion. It could not come fast enough. With that being said, pursuers, again, I'm going to say it again. Thank you so much. I will talk to you guys soon.